Reducing workplace bias. The backfire effect refers to the fact that when we are faced with alternative views and opinions, we can use the conflict to become more firmly convinced of our positions. The backfire effect can mean that we and others become more closed-minded the more we are confronted with different views. Alternative positions then don't encourage us to think more, but on the contrary, think less. The lesson and meditation will help you to see alternative ideas not as threats, but as ways to learn. Listening with an open mind doesn't mean that you agree with a different viewpoint, but that you respect all viewpoints and don't impulsively reject them. A testimony to how reluctantly we typically change our minds can be found in both the backfire effect and the continued influence effect. These are similar responses to getting disconfirming evidence about a currently held view or opinion. Cognitive biases definitely come into play when our opinions and beliefs are threatened, and these biases are great examples of the fact that we are very reluctant to let go of ideas in which we are invested. Now, a rational person confronted with data that shows an existing opinion is flawed would hopefully give serious consideration to the new information and consider all realistic explanations. If your plan to increase sales doesn't seem to be working, a rational approach would be to try to understand the reasons behind the disappointing numbers. There would be some, however, who would not like the emotional discomfort of having to revisit a favorite plan, and they would go to great lengths to defend it. This means finding some way of discrediting or downplaying the existing information. For example, one could find fault with the accounting, or find other reasons why the sales are down, like poor weather or some other excuse. Not only can you minimize the data and defend your position, the very defense of that opinion will lead to a strengthening of it, hence the backfire effect. The more you have to defend your position, the stronger you will believe in it, and the more you will be committed to it. This is actually why challenging someone head-on about their beliefs often fails to produce any change. The defense thus aroused increases their commitment to their position. This is precisely why communication strategies around change and transformation are so critical, and often misguided. Even when there is a certain acceptance of data that disproves or discredits an opinion, there is still the chance that people will hang on to that opinion, despite the fact that it has been disproved. While that opinion might not be as valued as it was before, it still continues to have influence consciously or otherwise. So while the specifics of a discredited approach might be given up, the general influences inherent in the opinion might continue to be embraced and influence subsequent thoughts, as in the continued influence effect. Meditation. Do not dwell in the past. Do not dream of the future. Concentrate the mind on the present moment. Buddha. You only lose what you cling to. Buddha. Entrepreneurship requires an unvanquished spirit of curiosity, an openness to learning, a letting go of old co, so you're free to create new co. Michael Gerber. There is a tendency to cling on to ideas and concepts that have served you well in the past, or you believe have served you well in the past. There comes a time, however, to review cherished thinking habits and practices to determine whether they have outlived their usefulness. The value of many ideas depends on context and operating conditions. There was a time when having a human operator answer incoming calls was an obvious essential. With automation, that has changed. There was a time when strict authoritarian control characterized great business leaders. But now, that idea has been turned on its head. Always make the time to review your prevailing and treasured philosophies and practices. One day, they will be obsolete. Has their time already come? Do you still cling on to ideas and practices that have become obsolete? Has their time come? Do not dwell in the past. Do not dream of the future. Concentrate the mind on the present moment. What matters most is whether your ideas and practices make sense in the present moment. Letting go can be difficult. However, you have to let go if you are going to adapt. You have to let go if you are going to be creative. You have to let go if you are going to innovate. Letting go is liberating. Letting go is about living in the present. Letting go is to avoid being a slave to your past. A certain idea or practice may have taken you far, but it might not be able to take you on the next part of your journey. Appreciate it and respect it, but everything has its time. Don't use it to the point where it fails you. Letting go can be difficult. However, you have to let go if you are going to adapt. You have to let go if you are going to be creative. You have to let go if you are going to innovate. Letting go is liberating. Letting go is about living in the present. Letting go is to avoid being a slave to your past. Entrepreneurship requires an unvanquished spirit of curiosity, an openness to learning, a letting go of old co, so you're free to create new co. Great leaders are curious. Great leaders are open to learning. Great leaders are adept at letting go of the old and becoming free to create the new. Be courageous enough to challenge everything. Be smart enough to challenge everything. Be daring enough to challenge everything. You only lose what you cling to. You only lose because you cling to. Great leaders don't cling. Great leaders are adept at letting go of the old and becoming free to create the new. Be courageous enough to challenge everything. Be smart enough to challenge everything. Be daring enough to challenge everything. Reducing workplace bias.